All right, we're excited for another round of Titus Talks Talent. We got Adrian Davis. He's the COO for H2 Brands Group. Adrian is a guy that's done a ton of work in building and leading this organization, and we're looking forward to learning from him. Adrian, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ben.
Awesome. Well, our topic today is really how do you drive performance and coaching throughout your business? We'll kind of let you free speak here, and then we'll dive into some additional questions.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Ben. As a manufacturer and an international distributor, our major focus is on developing and providing products to our customers in the most timely manner. So the most efficient way for us to do that is to make sure that every year we're planning and using good corporate planning strategies to establish what we call strategic deployment initiatives, which are really 4 or 5 key areas that you want your business to focus in. And so for us, as a manufacturer and distributor, it's safety of our employees, the quality of our products, the service we provide our customers, the cost at which we provide that service, and growth, last and of course not least. The way we manage performance then in that framework is every year those corporate objectives have metrics, and each individual department can impact those metrics in a different way. Safety in the operations world, the quality world, those are all big operational areas, and each department within operations sets targets and sets goals and writes SMART goals to correspond with those strategic deployment initiatives that have been established by the corporate group. And from that point in time, then those SMART goals are rolled out and aligned with those different categories and aligned within the operation into each individual level. So you have it at the COO level down to VPs, directors, managers, all the way down to the supervisory level, where we're rolling out goals and aligning to those overall corporate objectives.
It's great. It sounds like there must be a lot of visibility and transparency so people know exactly what's expected of them and have to go execute on that.
There is. In setting clear and concise objectives and goals for employees is very critical when you're managing performance. People need to know how they're going to be measured, and they need to know, frequently throughout the year how they're performing versus that expectation. So, what we do to manage that is we do what we call a one-on-one meeting where manager meets with employee on a monthly basis, reviews their SMART goals that they've written, reviews the metrics for their department, gives them feedback on how they're progressing versus their SMART goal plan, and then also how they're doing versus their metrics. And in addition to that, then we sprinkle in a little bit of a 360 feel where we do what's called a skip meeting. So from my perspective, I primarily am doing one-on-ones with the vice president level. I will do a skip meeting where I'll meet with the directors, on a quarterly basis and provide them feedback on their SMART goals and the progress they've made in terms of their overall plan for the year.
What do you think? Because we kind of believe in the same things. We're big believers in you manage for performance, and everyone needs to know and where you're going and what's expected of them. Some people might think that to be like a really, overly driven culture or an overly number driven culture. But do you find that people actually appreciate it because they know their expectations and what they're doing?
Yeah, I do. I think, another important part of managing performance is yes, setting expectations, but also giving people a path to understanding how they're not only succeed in their current role, but how they could potentially step into the next role. And yes, it's numbers driven, and that's not always for everybody, but I think you'd find that people, when expectations are set and understood, and they also know how to get from position A to position B so they can advance their career, you tend to get employees that are more satisfied with the organization that they're working in.
Yeah, and I think, they're not caught off guard with expectations they didn't know. They have a plan that's lined up from day one with them. We're a big believer in that too, right? And ultimately, you're paying somebody that salary to complete those key measurable performance objectives, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's exactly right.
And now your business knows where your value is and how you're associating your overall strategy through your workforce, and which is huge.
Yep, absolutely.
How about in terms of the development piece? There's kind of 2 key areas that drive engagement. One is the manager and that relationship with the manager. And then the other is people that are, are and believe they're aligned with the role they're in.
Mm-hmm.
You do anything right now, to help drive good manager relationships, good manager training? It sounds like you do some things, but maybe add a little bit to that.
Yeah, we don't do anything formal. We try to from a career development perspective. We do have career path development where people fill out within their SMART goals. They have a career development goal that's part of their SMART goals, which is how we facilitate that. And it becomes a discussion with the manager, and an open and honest discussion. You're not qualified because you don't have enough education or experience or whatever it might be. And these are the things you need to do within your SMART goal to get to the next level. In terms of training for managers, we've done some formal training, but for the most part, I would call it it's been top-down approach. So the top levels of the organization have been trained from the VP level, and I've relied on them to roll that out to their teams and push that down, through their organizations. And really, that training focuses around having difficult conversations and handling conflict, because those are the two things that tend to trip people up the most in leadership roles. Is when they have to have a confrontational conversation. They have to give feedback that is not positive feedback. That can be done, and it can be done in a way that's constructive for the employee or destructive for the employee. And so that's really where our training focus has been, and it's been at a higher level, and then relying on those higher levels to flow that down to their teams and educate and teach those techniques.
That's good. I was just in a conversation earlier today about focusing on leadership development, and that can be almost the number one topic to start with.
Yep.
Because it's the hardest thing for most people to do.
Yeah. I mean, for a new manager in particular, or even a new director who's never had has been in different roles and has been a manager, but has never had to manage a large team or somebody that's failing or not performing, it's extremely difficult and requires, it's a process you have to follow through correctly. Make sure that it's constructive and not destructive.
That's a great place to start. How about job alignment? We're big believers in right person, right seat. How do you really evaluate? Do you have a process to evaluate that as you're looking at the performance of your org chart?
Yeah, it's nothing formal, Ben. We've really been informal on that. We have very detailed job descriptions. We have a matrix of skills that we know people need to have to fit into a role. And we use more of a traditional interview approach, interview experience approach, and behavioral questioning to determine whether or not that person has the skill sets that we're looking for to fit each position that we have.
So you got it pretty organized in the front end, right? You want to try to limit the negative hiring the best you can to get right person, right seat, and then through your review system, you're trying to find ways to identify issues, or you can see it through the performance, right? If there's negative performance, you really got to understand right person, right seat, coach them up or figure out the right seat for them.
Yep, absolutely.
No, that's good. What, you've been doing this a while now, Adrian, if you're a younger self, what's like one tip to the audience that you'd be like, this is something as a leader when I'm driving performance or coaching that I'd want, you think is something you've really developed in over the last 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing a manager can do is, and this is a really hard thing to do because, there's a lot of pressure on people that are in management roles, director roles, especially now in business, especially during the pandemic. It's really hard. And one thing that I wish that I was better at when I was a much younger leader was that going into a situation, whether it was an employee is struggling or they're not performing or there's some other issue that's going on, to really spend the time to understand the issue and to understand the employee before being understood yourself. So understanding what are the roadblocks, what are the obstacles that are preventing the employee that I could be doing to prevent this employee from achieving what they need to achieve, and what can I do, what part can I play to remove those roadblocks so that then we can start talking about that employee's performance and how that employee can improve. And that's something I picked up at Amazon, and they were really good at that, at being self-reflective in terms of your management style and how your management style might be causing that person, to not have the success that they've had. And it's kind of a little bit of a seek first, to understand others before yourself being understood. It's very critical.
That's huge, right? I mean, you're self-reflecting management style, especially if we're seeing engagement and or performance can be driven by manager, right? The manager has that perspective. Let's make sure me as a manager is not the limiting factor in success.
Yeah, and the number one thing that I see in when we do acquisitions, which we do quite a few, and we go into a new company where there's an underperformance, it usually has something to do with the way that the business is being managed.
That's great. That's good. Yeah, you get the exposure to see different acquisitions and cultures and people strategies and business objectives, more frequently than most. That's cool that you got that perspective. And you can dial it into like a root cause like that for so many. Well, hey, Adrian, we appreciate your time. It was good to get some insight from you. I look forward to having more conversations on our podcast about managing for performance.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep. See you.